It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance inside the state capitol in Lansing, and we are joined by State Senator Margaret O'Brien. She represents significant portions of Kalamazoo County. And recently you were walking around Portage, and you ran into someone you've known. He's a fixture in town. His name is Bob. Tell us about Bob.
Well, you know, often when you're walking around your neighborhood, you see certain people, you wave, and Bob is somebody I'd always waved to. And one day I had an opportunity to actually get to talk to him, and I noticed he was wearing a hat that said Vietnam Veteran. And I started talking to him, and he got very emotional. And I got him to give me his hand, and it took a while to get him to do that. He wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I said, "Thank you for your service." And I'll tell you, the emotion that came on his face, it's hard to believe that this many years later, there are veterans who've never been thanked for their service.
We know the Vietnam era was a challenging one for the nation, and when many of those veterans came back, they were not welcomed with ticker tape parades. It was a controversial war. We've learned from that. We now honor all veterans. But that one moment, just grabbing his hand, I mean, I can imagine. And I know that touched you, and as a result, you were part of a team of legislators that put forth a 4-bill package to help our veterans, even just a little bit. Tell us about the bill that you sponsored, SB 299.
Well, if you think about it, defending our country is hard enough. And you go through a lot of mental trauma, emotional trauma, in addition to any physical trauma you might go through. And then if you're not welcomed back, you're adding even more trauma, which is what happened to Bob. But thankfully, I think our country, we've responded differently to those who serve, but we still have the emotional and mental trauma. We've got a lot of hidden wounds. They're invisible. We don't see them, but they're real. Post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury. That's where this comes in.
Right, and let's face it, so often men feel as if they show mental weakness, it's a sign that they're showing a lack of masculinity. And we need to just get through to them that we're there for them. And like you said, this is where this bill comes in, and we think about the benefit of our canines. And tell us about the canines that you're hoping to help with veterans, helping the veterans.
It's hard for a warrior to say,
Right.
I'm going to need some assistance. So when you have people who have traumatic brain injuries or post-traumatic stress, a service animal can be trained to help you deal with stressful situations. They can actually spot some stressful situations in advance, help you avoid it or cope with it better, much like dogs are used to help for people who may be blind or may be deaf, or we've heard about seizures and other things.
Mental challenges, Down syndrome sometimes. I've seen children really react positively to service dogs.
Exactly, and it's been too long where, within the military community, they haven't known how to help somebody who was struggling with an invisible wound, let alone just the average community outside of the military. And this is a way through having service dogs can help these warriors. And you might say, okay, so what does it matter? Okay, great, they get a service dog. Well, first, it's always important to provide some uniformity so that shopkeeper, that restaurant owner knows you're not just bringing in your little pooch because they're a spoiled dog, but this is somebody who's actually working. This is a dog that's working to help someone. So bring some uniformity with a patch. And it's a voluntary registration that veterans could do for their service dogs. Get a patch from the state for free. They can have it put onto their dog's cape so that the store owner, the business owner can say, this is a service dog. Second, waive the licensing fees for dogs. Michigan law says they're required to be licensed. That's specifically what my bill does. And make sure that they're able to get that help. Service animals are expensive enough. So whatever we can do to help get that service animal, we don't even realize what a game changer this is. And it's been a pleasure to work with Senator Kniezek. This has been his issue. He did 2 tours in Iraq. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and he didn't lose his colleagues in Iraq. He lost them here. And he lost them here because of the anguish they faced when they came back. Yes, and it's so hard if you think about it. It's hard enough to go over and overseas, but coming back, he asked me, he goes, could a service dog have helped them? I think it could have. And so I've tried to make sure that I champion those causes that he so strongly believes in helping our veterans. He's somebody who's walked the walk. He knows what it's like. My brother served in the Persian Gulf War. My grandpa was in World War II. I've never served in combat, but as the chairwoman of the Senate Committee on Veterans, Military Affairs, and Homeland Security, I feel it's my job to make sure we're doing what we can to help the veterans. They've given so much. They were willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice to defend freedom around this country and to keep America strong. So we need to do what we can do to make sure that the policies are helping them succeed back home.
And it's a small step, but it's such a significant step.
It is.
It really can be, like you said, a game changer. It's amazing how animals can just change a moment. And with your bill, that moment can turn into a series of moments where they really get their lives back. I want to shift gears, if I may, Senator, and speak with you about education. We know that we only want the best for our children. In the final analysis, it's so hard to determine whether a teacher is effective. And we're always grappling to figure out what's the best way to look at teacher performance that's fair to the teacher and fair to the student. 2011, a law was passed. Now a law reforming that law was passed in 2015. Give us a sense of how we've reformed the 2011 law.
Well, first, it's been very difficult to work on education issues because it's the single most political subject we have.
No.
We're interfering or interfacing with children, and we all have a strong opinion about what's best for children. So in 2011, the initial push was we need to keep the best teachers in the school when we're facing layoffs or you got declining enrollment, keep the best teachers there. And out of that law, which is what I had sponsored, we had said we want a strong evaluation system based on research that shows what actually makes a great teacher. It's taken us a little while, but after years of hard work, we now have a bill that's been signed by the governor that goes at teachers and administrators and takes research-proven best practices and says evaluations have to be based on those. No more, I just like what they're doing. It's got to be based on fact because we know that having the best teacher in the classroom can be a game changer for kids.
But with the 2015 law, what Michigan has done has given a bit more control back to the local districts to allow those districts to make a decision as to what best practices apply for their communities. Give us a sense as to why that was important.
Well, actually it gave locals options. I wouldn't say it gave more control. It gave control for the tool.
Right.
But it said we have to have evaluations based in best practices. We all know what they are if you're in the education world. And so it gave control over which tool works best. But it said, here are the standards. And it's very important because teachers too often, I traveled the state, I talked to over 100 teachers and said, what do you want in evaluation? They wanted to be evaluated. They wanted to know where they're strong and they need to keep flying high. Everybody has a weakness. They go, what's mine so that I can improve it? And then if I have a weakness, what are the trainings I can go get to? And for too long, too many teachers weren't given that basic information they need.
And I also know that as part of the new law, the formula as it relates to student growth was shifted. Give us some background as to why it was important to shift that formula.
Well, first, Michigan has never had a student growth tool. We're in our first year of MSTEP. Hopefully this will be able to measure student growth. And people go, why does student growth measured? You know, and why does it matter? Well, let's say your child, little Johnny, is behind. Well, if you never can see how he's growing, you don't know if Johnny can catch up or is on pace to catch up until he actually catches up. And so you can imagine if your child's been struggling and you never see them catching up, you might get frustrated. We might be able to see where we're making incremental growth. Or if your child's very advanced, you may not know they're very advanced and may not know they're actually not growing at a great rate because maybe they're not being challenged and they slowly go from being advanced to being just proficient. And so it's really about individualizing this for each student. And we don't want it to make up too much of the evaluation.
And that's where it changed. When you come back, we'll talk more about growth and student growth and the evaluation of it. Her name is Margaret O'Brien. She is a member of the Michigan State Senate. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is Charter Local Edition.